The Dravok Imperium did not arrive with warning. It never did. Space above Earth simply changed, as if reality itself had been torn open and stitched back together in a new shape. One moment, the solar orbit was empty and silent. The next, thousands of warships filled it. Massive, angular constructs of blackened metal and glowing crimson veins stretched across the sky like a living eclipse. Their shadows fell across the moon, swallowing its surface in darkness. Satellites flickered out one by one as unknown interference rippled through Earth's entire communication network. Then came the silence before the message. Every screen on Earth, phones, televisions, military monitors, airport billboards, went black at the exact same second. People froze mid-step in crowded streets. Cars stopped on highways. Air traffic controllers stared at dead radar systems. Then a face appeared. Alien, humanoid, but wrong in every subtle way, too still, too symmetrical, eyes like polished obsidian without reflection. Supreme Commander Vaylor. His voice did not echo through speakers. It felt like it was inside the mind of every human who heard it. Primitive world designation, Sol 3. A pause. Then colder. Species classification, temporary. Across Earth, panic ignited instantly. In New York, people screamed and ran into subway tunnels. In Islamabad, entire neighborhoods gathered in prayer. In Tokyo, emergency sirens blended with static from dead broadcasts. And in underground military bunkers buried beneath mountains and oceans, every nation on Earth simultaneously activated its highest threat protocols, despite knowing it was already too late. Vaylor continued, unmoved. You are now property of the Dravok Imperium. His image shifted slightly, revealing what lay behind him. Planets, burning, entire civilizations reduced to drifting ash fields and shattered moons. This outcome is not negotiable. The transmission ended with a single command. Surrender or be erased. Then the skis themselves answered. A low hum filled the atmosphere. Not sound exactly, more like pressure. A vibration in reality. Above every major city, faint red lines appeared in the clouds, forming geometric targeting grids that stretched from horizon to horizon. The Imperial fleet was locking weapons. Earth had seconds. Maybe less. Inside a buried command bunker beneath Switzerland, General Marcus Hale stood before a circular table of holographic war displays. Around him, world leaders shouted, argued, panicked. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others demanded retaliation that no one believed would matter. A scientist's voice cracked through the chaos. Our nuclear arsenal is irrelevant. Their shields, they don't even register radiation. Another officer slammed his fist down. We're blind, we can't track their ships. We don't even know how many there are. Hale did not react. He simply watched the flickering tactical projections of orbit. Then he spoke quietly. Stop talking. The room fell into uneasy silence. Hale stepped forward, placing his hand on a hidden biometric console embedded into the floor. This is no longer a war, he said. A pause. This is an awakening. One of the politicians turned sharply. General, what are you talking about? We have no contingency for. Hale cut him off. You don't. He looked up at the ceiling, as if he could see through kilometers of rock, soil, and ocean. But someone else does. A warning tone suddenly echoed through the bunker systems. Red lights flashed along the walls. Access level, Omega clearance required. The scientists exchanged confused looks. One whispered, that level doesn't exist. Hale's voice hardened. It does now. He pressed his palm fully against the console. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every screen in the bunker shifted. Not to Earth's orbit. Not to the fleet. But to something buried beneath all known satellite mapping, geological surveys, and classified deep core scans. Something impossible. A structure the size of a continent, hidden beneath oceanic crust and tectonic plates. Sleeping. Waiting. A label appeared on the screen in no human language, then translated automatically. Atlas Protocol initiation locked. The entire bunker went dead silent. A young analyst whispered, barely audible, "General, what is Atlas?" Hale did not answer immediately. Above them, the first Imperial weapons began to charge. Across the sky, red light intensified. Oceans reflected it like blood spreading through water. Cities were bathed in an unnatural crimson glow. The countdown had begun. Hale finally spoke. Something humanity was never supposed to remember. He turned to face the stunned room. And something we were never meant to survive without. At that exact moment, Earth's magnetic field shifted violently. All at once, every compass on the planet spun wildly. And deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, something enormous began to move for the first time in millennia. Vaylor's fleet detected it instantly. Anomalous planetary energy spike. Impossible gravitational distortion. Unknown origin. The Supreme Commander narrowed his eyes from the Oblivion crown. "Target the source," he ordered calmly. "Erase it." The Imperial fleet adjusted its firing arcs toward Earth's surface. Toward the oceans. Toward the sleeping thing beneath them. And far below the crushing pressure of the sea, something answered the activation signal. Not in words, but in wakefulness. And Earth stopped being a target, and started becoming a weapon. Then the oceans began to glow from within. The first strike from the Imperial fleet never reached the surface. It dissolved halfway through the atmosphere. Not exploded. Not deflected. Simply erased. Commander Vaylor noticed the anomaly instantly from the bridge of the Oblivion crown. His expression did not change, but the silence in the command chamber deepened. "Report," he ordered. A sensor officer's fingers flew across glowing panels. "Energy projectiles, they are vanishing before impact." Another voice, sharper now. "It's not shielding, it's like space is rejecting them." Vaylor stepped closer to the central hologram of Earth. The oceans were glowing. Not from light above, but from within. Deep beneath the Pacific, massive geometric structures had awakened. Ancient metallic frameworks shifted after millennia of silence, pushing aside tectonic plates like they were paper. Entire trenches lit up in sequences of blue-white energy pulses. On Earth's surface, people saw it first as auroras in the wrong place. Then as the sea rising vertically. In Jakarta, fishermen dropped their nets as the ocean shimmered like liquid glass. In Rio, beaches vanished under rising walls of light. In Mumbai, the shoreline lit up like a circuit board turning on after centuries of sleep. Inside the Swiss bunker, alarms screamed. Massive energy signature detected under all ocean basins. "That's impossible. No civilization could build." A scientist stopped mid-sentence as the data finished updating. "That's not human construction." General Marcus Hale stared at the projection, jaw tight. It never was. Above Earth, Imperial ships shifted formation. Weapons re-aimed. Hundreds of capital cannons aligned toward the oceans. Vaylor's voice cut through the fleet channels. "Begin planetary sterilization, full saturation." And then, the oceans answered. A pulse erupted from the depths of the Pacific. Not a wave. Not an explosion. A signal. It traveled faster than light across the planet's waters, sinking every hidden structure beneath every ocean trench, every abyssal ridge, every forgotten deep-sea void. And in response, the sea rose. Not upward like water, but upward like architecture forming itself into reality. Gigantic structures emerged from the ocean floor, towers of unknown alloy, spiraling upward through kilometers of water without resistance. The ocean did not break around them. It obeyed them. Human satellites captured it all in real time before going dark. Entire continents watched screens as the sea turned into a glowing lattice of machinery. Then came the second phase activation. Every Imperial sensor aboard the fleet went blind. Not damaged. Not jammed. Rewritten. "Commander," an officer shouted, "our targeting systems are being overridden." Vaylor's eyes narrowed. By what? Before anyone could answer, the fleet itself began to shake. Space around them distorted, like reality was folding inward. And then the first Imperial dreadnought simply disappeared. No explosion. No debris. One moment it existed. The next it was gone. A second ship vanished. Then 10. Then hundreds. Panic spread across the fleet faster than fire and oxygen. We're losing UNITS in real time. No SI-Gen 8 URES. No weapons DETCTED. It's coming from the planet itself is. The transmission cut off as another cruiser blinked out of existence. Vaylor gripped the railing of the command platform. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something unfamiliar crawling through logic. Uncertainty. Below them, Earth was no longer passive. It was actively defending itself. Inside the Swiss bunker, Marcus Hale watched the ocean-borne structures align across global maps, each one locking into position like a planetary-scale defense grid. A technician whispered, "General, this is a weapon network. It's targeting orbit." Hale nodded slowly. "Yes." A pause. "And it's been asleep longer than human civilization has existed." Another scientist stepped forward, shaking. "Who built it?" Hale hesitated for the first time, then quietly said, "Not who." He looked at the flickering hologram of Earth. "What?" Above the planet, the Imperial fleet began firing everything it had. Plasma storms ripped through orbit. Planetside beams carved down toward the oceans with enough power to vaporize continents. But every attack vanished into the glowing sea lattice before reaching its target. Then Earth struck back. A single pulse rose from the ocean core. Silent, invisible, and instantaneous. Half of the Imperial forward fleet disappeared in a blink. Entire battle formations erased from existence, as if they had never been written into reality. Vaylor's voice finally rose. "Recalculate engagement strategy, now." But even as he spoke, a massive structure breached the Pacific surface completely. Not just rising, arriving. A colossal oceanic spire taller than mountains pierced through clouds, glowing with ancient blue light. And at its peak, something activated. A symbol, recognized instantly by every surviving Imperial system. Designation, Atlas Signal Origin Point. Inside the bunker, all eyes turned to Hale. A junior officer asked in a trembling voice, "General, if that's Atlas." Hale stared at the ocean spire rising through Earth's atmosphere. "Then we're out of time." Above them, the Imperial fleet prepared its final response. And deep within the awakened ocean network, something opened its eyes for the first time in millions of years. The moment the ocean spire fully breached Earth's atmosphere, every system in the solar orbit stopped functioning correctly. Not shut down. Not damaged. Rewritten again. Imperial fleets prided themselves on absolute control of information warfare. Their ships could filter reality itself into clean data streams. No interference had ever survived contact with their core systems. Yet now, every screen aboard the Oblivion Crown displayed the same impossible phenomenon. A waveform. A signal. Not broadcasted through space, but written into it. Commander Vaylor stood motionless as the bridge fell into uneasy chaos. "Source origin," he demanded. A sensor officer's voice cracked. "It's everywhere, sir. It's not localized. It's embedded in the entire planetary electromagnetic structure." Another officer added, "It's not just Earth anymore, it's propagating outward." Vaylor turned sharply. "Outward." Before anyone could answer, the signal reached the fleet. Every Imperial ship froze simultaneously. Weapon systems paused mid-charge. Engines stalled. Even the gravitational stabilizers briefly misaligned, causing entire cruisers to drift like dead stones in orbit. Then the voice came. Not human. Not alien. Something older than language. And yet it translated itself into comprehension inside every mind it touched. Humanity must remain. Silence. Then panic. What is this? Is it AI? No known civilization has this encoding capability. Vaylor's jaw tightened. Trace it. We can't, it's not transmitted, it's manifested. On Earth, the ocean spire continued to rise. But now it was no longer alone. Across the planet, similar structures erupted from deep underground, beneath deserts, beneath frozen poles, beneath mountain ranges untouched by human civilization. Each one synchronized with the central spire. Each one responding to the same signal. Inside the Swiss bunker, General Marcus Hale watched the global map transform into a web of glowing nodes. A young analyst whispered, "This is planetary-scale communication infrastructure, but it's not human design." Hale nodded slowly. "It's older than our species." A scientist turned sharply. "Older than humanity? That's impossible. Earth is only." Hale cut him off. "Not Earth." He pointed at the network. "This technology didn't originate on this planet. It was placed here." A heavy silence followed. Then alarms screamed again. This time not from orbit, but from beneath the Earth's crust. Massive seismic readings erupted worldwide. Not destruction. Activation. The entire planet was waking up layer by layer, like something buried was finally remembering how to move. Above Earth, Vaylor's fleet attempted emergency countermeasures. Jamming frequencies at maximum output. Deploy quantum scramblers. Target the ocean spire directly. Thousands of Imperial weapons fired in unison. Entire sections of space lit up with devastating energy beams capable of erasing moons. But before a single attack reached the surface, the signal changed. It sharpened, condensed, and responded. Every Imperial ship instantly received a command override signal. Not from their fleet command, not from their AI cores, from inside their own systems. Security protocols collapsed instantly. Weapons turned off. Shields deactivated. Engines went silent. Vaylor's eyes widened for the first time. "We are being hacked," he said slowly. A subordinate shouted, "By what authority?" Vaylor didn't answer immediately. Because for the first time in his life, he saw something he couldn't classify. A fleet-wide systems message appeared across every console in the Imperial Armada. It read, "Authority Atlas Core." Then, half of the Imperial fleet vanished. Not destroyed. Not transported. Removed from spacetime tracking entirely. Entire battle groups simply ceased to register as existing objects. Panic erupted across command channels. "We're losing contact with entire SECTORS. This is not weapons fire. It's reality DESYNC." Inside the bunker, Hale clenched his fists. "It's starting," he said quietly. A scientist looked up. "Starting what?" Hale turned toward the global display, showing Earth's ocean spire glowing brighter than ever. The response phase. Above the planet, Emperor Zerath, ruler of the Dravok Imperium, finally entered the communication channel. His presence replaced Vaylor's screen without permission. The Emperor's face was calm. "Too calm." "So," Zerath said softly, "the old defense system still functions." Vaylor stiffened. "My Emperor, you recognize this." Zerath's eyes narrowed slightly. "Of course I do." A pause. "I thought it was extinct." The Imperial bridge fell silent. Zerath continued. "That signal you are witnessing is not a weapon." He leaned forward slightly. "It is a Guardian protocol." On Earth, the ocean spire pulsed again. And deep beneath Antarctica, something massive rotated for the first time in millions of years. Zerath's voice grew colder. "Do not let it complete synchronization." Vaylor immediately turned. "All fleets focus fire on the spire." But before the order could execute, the signal changed again. This time, it targeted Emperor Zerath directly. His transmission flickered. For a fraction of a second, Even the Emperor of the Dravok Imperium looked uncertain. Then his image vanished. Every Imperial screen went black. The entire fleet froze. And in that silence, Earth's oceans spoke one final message. First contact complete. But beneath the Antarctic ice, a final lock clicked open, and something enormous began to rise toward the surface. The silence after the Emperor's disappearance did not last long. In space warfare, silence was never peace. It was recalibration. The Imperial fleet remained frozen in orbit above Earth, drifting like a wounded constellation. Entire battle groups were still missing, erased from all tracking systems after the Atlas signal shift. No debris, no wreckage, just absence. Commander Vaylor stood rigid on the bridge of the Oblivion Crown, staring at the empty command channel where Emperor Zerath had been moments before. The screen remained black. No return signal. No confirmation. Just void. An officer finally spoke, voice uncertain. "Commander, the Emperor's link has been severed." Vaylor did not respond immediately. His hands rested behind his back, but the tension in his posture had changed. The certainty that had defined him since Earth's arrival was gone. Not fear. Not yet. But something dangerously close. Then the Emperor returned. Not as a simple transmission, but as a system-wide override that forcibly replaced every active display in the fleet. Zerath appeared again. Calm. Too calm. "You have awakened it," the Emperor said. Vaylor straightened instantly. "My Emperor, we are containing the anomaly. The planetary system is resisting." Zerath interrupted sharply. "That is not resistance." A pause. "That is design." The bridge fell silent. On Earth, beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, something massive continued rising. The ice cracked in continent-scale fractures. Steam exploded into the sky as heat older than recorded civilization poured upward. Inside the Swiss bunker, alarms had become constant background noise. Entire sections of the facility vibrated as seismic waves spread globally. General Marcus Hale watched the planetary map shift again. 3 major ocean spires now stood active. One beneath the Pacific. One beneath the Atlantic. One beneath Antarctica. All 3 were synchronizing. A technician whispered, "It's forming a triangular resonance field around Earth." Hale nodded grimly, "A containment lattice." "Containment of what?" someone asked. Hale didn't answer, because the answer was already rising. Above Earth, the Imperial fleet finally resumed movement. Not unified. Not confident. Fragmented. "Emperor has ordered planetary annihilation," Vaylor announced, his voice regaining discipline. "All fleets prepare final bombardment." A pause. Then softer. "We end this world now." Thousands of Imperial cannons began charging simultaneously. The sky above Earth lit up like a second sun forming in orbit. Energy readings climbed beyond planetary-scale thresholds. If unleashed, the blast would not just destroy Earth, it would vaporize the entire biosphere down to the mantle. On the surface, humanity watched the sky turn white-red. In cities, people stopped running. There was nowhere left to go. Inside bunkers, military commanders gave final evacuation orders no one could follow. In the Swiss facility, Hale stood alone in front of the central display. A junior officer grabbed his arm. "General, we have to initiate global evacuation protocols. What's left of them?" Hale shook his head once. "No." The officer froze. "No." Hale's eyes stayed, fixed on the Antarctic signal spike. "There's nowhere to evacuate to," he said quietly. "This was never about survival off-world." He looked up. This was about whether Earth itself would wake up. Above the planet, Emperor Zerath gave the final command. "Fire." The Imperial fleet obeyed. Every weapon discharged at once. A storm of destruction descended toward Earth, plasma annihilation beams, gravitational collapse projectors, antimatter saturation waves. Space itself bent under the force of coordinated Imperial firepower. The attack hit the atmosphere and stopped. Not slowed. Not deflected. Stopped. Like an invisible hand had closed around the entire planet. The energy froze in midair. Vaylor's eyes widened. Impossible. Then the ocean spoke again. Not sound. Not signal. A presence. The Antarctic spire erupted fully from the ice. It was not a structure. It was a spine. A colossal, ancient framework extending upward from something buried, so deep beneath Earth's crust that even planetary scans had never reached it. As it rose, all three spires across the globe connected in real time. A triangular energy field snapped into existence around Earth. And the Imperial attack dissolved instantly. Every weapon, every beam, every wave of destruction. Gone. Emperor Zerath finally changed expression. For the first time he looked alert. So it is active. Vaylor turned sharply. My Emperor, what is this system? Zerath's voice was quieter now. It is not a system. He leaned closer to the camera feed. It is a prison. Silence. On Earth, the Antarctic spine continued rising until it pierced the sky itself. Then something responded from deep below. A pressure wave spread through the planet's crust. Not destructive. Awakening. Inside the Swiss bunker, every screen flickered red. Hale stepped back slightly. That's not activation, he whispered. A scientist asked, then what is it? Hale's voice dropped. That's the lock coming off. Above Earth, the Imperial fleet tried to retreat. But space itself had changed. No jump coordinates worked. No warp gates responded. No escape vectors remained stable. Vaylor's voice finally broke through command discipline. We are trapped. And beneath Earth, something that had been asleep longer than the Imperium had existed opened its eyes. The Antarctic spine glowed brighter than a newborn star. And the prison holding it finally began to open. The moment the prison lock beneath Earth began to fail, every system across the solar battlefield reacted at once. Not with hope, with instinctive fear. Even the Imperial fleet, built on conquest, expansion, and absolute dominance, hesitated for the first time in its recorded history. Commander Vaylor felt it as a pressure change in the bridge, like reality itself was holding its breath. Below them, Earth no longer looked like a planet. It looked like a sealed container with cracks forming along its surface. Inside the Swiss bunker, alarms stopped sounding. Not because the danger had passed, but because the systems had stopped recognizing categories for what was happening. General Marcus Hale stood motionless in front of the central display. The Antarctic spine had fully risen now, stretching into orbit like a colossal black-white pillar of unknown material. The ocean spires remained locked in triangular formation, poolsing in synchronization with something deep beneath the crust. A scientist whispered, "If that thing fully opens, what comes out?" Hale didn't answer immediately. Then quietly, not something new. A pause. Something contained. Above Earth, Emperor Zerath finally issued a new order, but it was no longer the confident command of a conqueror. It was controlled urgency. All Imperial divisions maintain distance from planetary surface. Do not engage the core structure directly. Vaylor turned sharply. My Emperor, we had full firing solution. We could have ended this. Zerath cut him off. You cannot end it. A long silence followed. Then the Emperor added, You can only wake it faster. For the first time, doubt spread openly across Imperial command channels. Then Earth responded. Not with weapons. With movement. A single human fighter launched from the surface. It pierced through collapsing atmosphere debris and rising gravitational turbulence, flying directly into orbit like a needle threading through a storm of gods. Vaylor stared at it in disbelief. One ship, an officer shouted. They send one ship against us. The fighter was small, insignificant compared to Imperial destroyers that dwarfed cities. But it was moving with impossible precision. Inside the cockpit sat Captain Alina Hale, General Hale's daughter. Her hands were steady, her eyes locked forward. Inside her helmet, the navigation system displayed only one objective. Connector node, Anchor Point Alpha, Antarctica Core Link. Her voice came through encrypted channels. This is Atlas Carrier 1, initiating insertion run. Back in the bunker, Marcus Hale's face tightened. A technician turned to him. "General, that's your daughter out there." He didn't respond immediately. Then, "I know." Above Earth, Imperial ships began firing warning bursts. "Intercept that craft," Vaylor ordered. Multiple fighters launched instantly, streaking toward Alina's ship like silver knives through space. But something strange happened. Every time they got close, their systems glitched. Targeting reticles broke apart. Engine synchronization failed. Pilots reported hallucinations in their HUDs, structures in space that weren't there, coordinates shifting mid-flight, and ghost signals whispering inside their comms. Alina didn't evade. She didn't need to. She was not being protected by Earth's weapons anymore. She was being guided by something older. Inside her cockpit, a soft synthetic voice spoke for the first time. "Atlas Carrier confirmed." Alina responded instantly. "Connection status. Partial synchronization achieved." "Good," she said calmly, then opened the path. Above her, Imperial interceptor ships closed in. Vaylor watched the tactical feed narrowing. "Destroy her now." But before the order fully executed, Alina activated her payload. A pulse erupted from her fighter. Not explosive. Not destructive. A key signal. Every Imperial ship in the immediate sector froze again. But this time, not from system failure. From recognition. Deep inside Atlas architecture, something responded to her presence. The Antarctic spine reacted instantly. A thin beam of light shot upward from Earth's core, locking directly onto Alina's fighter. She was caught in it. Vaylor's eyes widened. She's being absorbed into the structure. Inside the bunker, Hale stepped forward sharply. "No," he whispered. A scientist turned. "General." "That's not absorption," Hale said. A pause. "That's authorization." Above Earth, Alina's fighter dissolved into light. Not destroyed. Integrated. And the Antarctic spine answered her presence. A massive segment of the structure rotated open, like a mechanical iris, the size of a continent. Inside it, darkness. Not empty space. A sealed chamber older than planets. And within that chamber, something moved. The Imperial fleet saw it instantly. Every sensor screamed at once. Unknown entity Diateocitidi. Classification, beyond scale. Vaylor's voice dropped to a whisper. "Emperor, what have we awakened?" Zerath did not answer immediately. Then quietly, "A mistake I thought was buried in a forgotten war." On Earth, all three spires aligned perfectly. The ocean grid stabilized. The Antarctic core chamber opened further. And Alina's voice echoed through every channel, no longer coming from a fighter, but from the structure itself. "I'm inside." A pause, then softer. "And it knows I'm here." Inside the bunker, Marcus Hale's expression hardened. Because he understood what that meant. Whatever was inside the prison was now aware of humanity, and it had chosen a human to speak through. Above Earth, the Imperial fleet began preparing its final contingency protocol. Because now, for the first time, they were no longer fighting a planet. They were fighting what the planet was built to contain. Inside the Antarctic core chamber, there was no sound at first. Not silence. Absence of the concept of sound itself. Alina Hale floated within a lattice of shifting light, her fighter fully dissolved into Atlas integration protocols. Every instinct in her mind screamed that she was no longer inside a machine, nor inside a structure, but inside something that thought in dimensions humanity had never learned to perceive. Then it spoke again. Not through words, through understanding. Anchor confirmed. Alina's breath was steady, but her voice carried tension. What are you? A pause. Then the answer arrived not as speech, but as compressed memory. A galaxy burning. Civilizations collapsing under unseen forces. A war fought before Earth had ever formed. And something sealed beneath a young planet, chosen not because it was important, but because it was remote enough to forget. Elena's eyes widened slightly. This is a prison. The entity responded. Correct. Above Earth, the Imperial fleet remained locked in defensive formation. Weapons were still charged, but hesitation had spread through every command layer. Even Valor now stood differently, less like a conqueror, more like a man standing too close to a collapsing star. On his tactical display, Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a containment structure. And it was opening. Inside the Swiss bunker, General Marcus Hale stared at the Antarctic energy spike. Every system around him had stopped providing meaningful readings. One by one, scientific models collapsed, replaced by raw warning labels. Reality anomaly. Class null entity awakening. Containment failure imminent. A scientist turned pale. General, if that thing fully emerges, what happens to Earth? Hale's answer came slowly. Earth stops being relevant. A pause. And so does everything near it. Above them, Emperor Zerath reappeared on every Imperial channel without warning. His expression had changed again. Now it carried something rare. History. This is not a weapon, Zerath said quietly. Valor stiffened. My Emperor, we can still destroy the core before full emergence. Zerath interrupted. If you destroy it. He paused. You release it completely. The bridge fell into uneasy silence. Zerath continued. What you are witnessing is not an invasion, not a defense system, not even a planetary intelligence. His eyes narrowed slightly. It is the remainder of a war that ended badly for everyone, except the ones who built containment. On Earth, Elena moved deeper into the chamber. The structure around her shifted, revealing layers upon layers of impossible architecture, floating geometries, rotating gravitational loops, and rivers of light that flowed upward instead of downward. She saw fragments of truth embedded in the system. Names of extinct civilizations. Star maps that predated known galaxies. And a single repeating designation. Atlas Final Containment Network. Elena whispered, "You were built to hold something, not to fight." The entity responded. "We were built to wait." A sudden tremor passed through the chamber. Not physical, conceptual. Something on the other side of the containment barrier had noticed her presence more clearly. Above Earth, the Antarctic spine pulsed violently. The ocean spires across the globe synchronized faster. The triangular lattice tightened. And Imperial ships began receiving corrupted telemetry data, signals that didn't describe position or motion, but intent. Valor's voice sharpened. "We are losing predictive models." A sensor officer shouted, "The system is anticipating us before we act." Another added, "It's learning our fleet structure." Zerath's voice cut through again. "No," he said calmly. "It is remembering you." Then in orbit above Earth, something shifted. The Imperial fleet detected a second layer beneath the Antarctic structure. A deeper chamber. One that had never been part of Atlas systems. Valor's eyes narrowed. There's something beneath the containment core. Zerath responded immediately. Yes. A long pause. That is the reason Atlas exists at all. Inside the bunker, Marcus Hale suddenly looked up sharply. Wait. A technician turned, General. Hale stepped closer to the hologram. That's not just a prison, he said slowly. A realization forming. That's a lock on a second lock. Above Earth, Elena reached the deepest visible layer of the chamber. A massive circular barrier stood before her, rotating slowly like a sealed eye made of gravity itself. Inside it, something moved again. But this time, it reacted differently. Not to Atlas. To her specifically. Elena's voice tightened. It knows me. The entity responded. No. A pause. It KNOWS humanity. Suddenly, all three planetary spires flared at once. Earth's surface lit up in a global pulse that reached orbit in seconds. The Imperial fleet staggered under the wave of interference. Vaylor grabbed the railing. What just happened? A subordinate shouted. The containment field just inverted. Zerath's expression finally darkened. So it has started recognizing the anchor. Inside the Antarctic chamber, Alina stepped closer to the barrier. Her reflection appeared in it, not as she was, but as something translated through Atlas systems. Stronger, older, connected. She whispered, "What's on the other side?" The entity hesitated. For the first time, then answered, "The original war." The barrier began to fracture. Slowly, deliberately, not breaking from damage, but from permission being granted. And above Earth, Emperor Zerath gave the final warning. If that chamber opens completely, he looked at Vaylor, there will be no Imperium left to command. The Antarctic core cracked open further, and something inside looked back. The moment the inner chamber looked back, every gravitational field around Earth stopped behaving normally. Not collapsing, not stabilizing, rewriting its rules. Commander Vaylor felt it instantly through the Oblivion crown. The bridge lights dimmed for half a second, as if the ship itself had blinked. Then every system returned, except nothing was consistent anymore. Star positions drifted slightly out of alignment. Fleet formations appeared shifted by fractions of distance that should not exist. Even time stamps on Imperial logs began disagreeing with each other. Vaylor's voice tightened. "Report status." A sensor officer hesitated. "Commander, the planetary field is no longer fixed, it's adaptive." Another added, "It's responding to observation." Vaylor turned sharply. "Explain." The officer swallowed hard. "Every time we scan Earth, it changes how it exists." A heavy silence spread across the bridge. Above Earth, the Antarctic structure completed its next phase. The spire was no longer just rising, it was unfolding. Layers of impossible geometry extended outward, connecting with the ocean spires and subterranean nodes. The entire planet became a synchronized machine of colossal scale. And then Earth shifted. Not physically, structurally. Continents trembled as hidden frameworks beneath the crust activated. Mountain ranges split open to reveal metallic veins of energy. Ocean currents rerouted into glowing circuits. The entire planet began forming a coherent system that no longer resembled geology. It resembled engineering. Inside the Swiss bunker, emergency generators flickered as the ceiling shook. A scientist whispered, "That's not tectonic activity, that's design execution." General Marcus Hale stood before the flickering global display. Earth was becoming something else. A classified analyst spoke slowly, almost afraid of the words. "General, it's forming a containment body." Hale nodded once. "And a projection interface." The analyst turned. "Interface for what?" Hale didn't answer immediately. Because deep down he already knew. Above them, Alina's consciousness remained inside the Antarctic core chamber. The barrier in front of her was no longer fully sealed. Cracks of light spread across its surface like fractures in reality itself. The voice within Atlas spoke again. "Contingency level, final." Alina's voice was steady but strained. "Final what?" "Final response form." A pause. Then, Earth is now a weaponized containment unit. Above the planet, Emperor Zerath watched everything with narrowed eyes. The Imperial fleet remained at distance, weapons still primed but no longer firing. Even they understood now, firing had stopped being meaningful. Vaylor finally spoke. "My Emperor, should we retreat?" For the first time, Zerath did not respond immediately. Then quietly, "There is nowhere it will allow you to retreat to." At that exact moment, Earth activated its offensive phase. It did not begin with explosions. It began with absence. Entire sections of Imperial space blinked out of existence as if erased from the universe's memory. Dreadnoughts vanished mid-formation. Fighter wings lost synchronization and simply ceased to exist in coordinated clusters. Panic erupted across the fleet. We are being deregistered from space. Our ships are losing physical continuity. This is not weapons fire, it's reality editing. Valor staggered slightly. What kind of defense system does this? Zareth cut him off. It is not defense. A pause. It is correction. Below, Earth's ocean spires aligned into a perfect triangle. The Antarctic spine became the central conduit. Energy flowed upward through all layers of the planet in a controlled cascade. And then Earth spoke. Not in sound, but in structured command data transmitted across all Imperial systems. Threat classification updated. Hostile presence, external civilization. Response authorization, maximum containment force. The Imperial fleet froze again. Valor's eyes widened. It's issuing authority commands to our systems. A subordinate shouted, "Our ships are accepting it as higher-level protocol." Zareth's expression darkened further. So it has fully awakened command hierarchy recognition. Inside the Antarctic chamber, Alina stepped closer to the cracked barrier. The entity's voice was quieter now. "You are the key." Alina froze slightly. "I'm human." "You are anchored humanity." The barrier fractured further. Behind it, something moved closer. Not fully visible, but immense enough that even perception struggled to contain it. Above Earth, the Imperial fleet finally made its decision. Valor raised his hand. "All units prepare for final collapse protocol." A pause, then quieter. "If we cannot control it, we erase it." Every Imperial ship began charging a final synchronized annihilation wave. A last resort attack designed to collapse planetary-scale systems entirely, even if it meant destroying the solar system itself. The sky above Earth turned into a geometric storm of death. But Earth did not react with panic. It reacted with completion. The Antarctic core fully opened. And Alina saw it. Not a creature, not a machine, but the original containment subject. And it was awake. Zareth's voice came one last time across all channels. Too late. The Imperial fleet fired. And Earth answered. A single pulse left the planet. Silent, perfect, absolute, and everything the Imperium sent vanished before it could finish existing. The battlefield went still. For one terrifying moment. There was no war. Only Earth, and what it had been hiding beneath itself. For the first time since the Imperial arrival, there was no immediate response. No counterfire. No fleet repositioning. No commands echoing through fractured channels. Just silence. The kind of silence that happens after reality has been rewritten and is still deciding what version of itself to continue with. Above Earth, where thousands of Imperial warships had once filled the sky like a metallic storm, there was now only scattered debris and drifting fragments of systems that no longer agreed on their own existence. Some ships were gone entirely. Others existed only in partial states, half-rendered, flickering between coordinates like broken thoughts. Commander Valor stood motionless on the bridge of the Oblivion Crown. The flagship still existed. Barely. Its hull lights flickered irregularly. Gravity stabilizers stuttered. Entire sections of the ship were missing from internal mapping, as if the structure itself could not decide whether those rooms had ever existed. Valor slowly turned his head toward the main viewport. Earth was still there. Calm, glowing faintly with the residual afterpulse of something far beyond planetary engineering. No weapons fired now. No defensive lattice activated. Just stillness. Then Emperor Zareth appeared one final time. Not through command override. Not through system hijack, but as a voluntary projection across every surviving Imperial channel. His expression was no longer controlled authority. It was something older, Understanding. You have seen the threshold? Zerath said quietly. Vaylor's voice was low. My Emperor, what was inside it? Zerath hesitated. For the first time, he looked away. Not a what, he said. A went. Silence spread across the remaining fleet. Zerath continued. Before our Imperium, before your species, before even the first recorded stars of this region were born, there was a war that did not end. It was only contained. A pause. And Earth, his eyes sharpened slightly, was never meant to be a world. Inside the Antarctic core chamber, Alina Hale floated at the center of collapsing geometric light. The barrier had fully broken now, but instead of destruction, there was structure reforming around her consciousness. The entity no longer spoke in fragments. Now it spoke in continuity. Anchor human accepted. Alina whispered, her voice strained. Accepted into what? A response formed around her like a growing memory of the universe itself. Final containment cycle. Above Earth, the planetary spires reconfigured one last time. The ocean nodes sank back beneath the surface. The Antarctic spine folded inward. Continents stabilized. Mountains reformed. But everything was different now. Earth was no longer a passive planet. It was a sealed mechanism. A lock that had just finished turning. Inside the Swiss bunker, systems flickered back online slowly. Emergency lights stabilized. Global networks attempted recovery protocols, but every database now contained a new classification. Earth status, active containment entity. General Marcus Hale stood before the screen, unmoving. A scientist approached carefully. General, the war is over. Hale didn't answer immediately. Then quietly, no. The scientist blinked, but the fleet is gone. Hale's eyes stayed fixed on Earth's orbital projection. That wasn't the war. A pause. That was the alarm system finishing its test. Above Earth, Vaylor finally received confirmation. The Imperial fleet was no longer capable of coordinated offense. Not destroyed, not defeated, but reclassified out of operational reality. Zerath's final words echoed across all surviving channels. If it ever fully opens again. He looked directly at Vaylor. You will not be fighting Earth. A long silence. You will be inside what Earth was built to prevent. Then his projection faded. Forever. On Earth, Alina's consciousness stabilized. The entity spoke one last time to her. Anchor human, required for maintenance of containment. Alina's voice was quiet now, so I'm part of it now. Yes. A pause. But you are also the reason it did not fail. Then everything went still. Not frozen. Not dead. Balanced. Above Earth, the sky returned to normal. Stars reappeared. The solar system remained intact. But something fundamental had changed. Every Imperial survivor understood it instinctively. Earth was no longer a target. It was a boundary. A warning placed in the universe itself. And beneath the calm surface of the oceans, something vast continued to sleep. Not defeated. Not freed. Waiting. Inside the Swiss bunker, Marcus Hale finally spoke again. Tell all nations, he said quietly. A pause. Earth is not defended anymore. He looked at the screen one last time. It is occupied by what we were protecting the universe from. Far above, in the silence of space, the last drifting Imperial vessel powered down its weapons systems voluntarily. Not in surrender, but in understanding. Because now they knew the truth. Humanity